In the part number 1 of the 5th section, we started with the modeling of a sword in Blender, which we'll be using to understand about the concept of retopology in Blender. And in the part 2, we'll now be focusing on adding some details to the sword's model, using sculpting and making it ready so that we can then work on the retopology. So to begin with, we have this sword model, and the first thing that we're gonna do is to make some changes in the base mesh. So let's go to the edit mode, and first of all, we have to notice that if there are any imperfections that we need to fix so that it can improve our model a little bit. It might be possible that for your 3D model, you might think that everything looks completely perfect and so there's no need to make any changes in any part of the geometry. But here in this model, I think that I should be making some slight changes over this part because right now the placement of the vertices is not proper, creating an uneven shape. So to fix this, let's go to the edit mode, and I'll first select this vertex loop over here and we'll slightly scale this down like this. Similarly, I'll select this one also and scale it down. Apart from this, you can also select this particular vertex loop and make this part sharp or pointing by basically moving these vertices in the x-axis and scaling this down. But this is completely optional for you because I won't be doing it over here for this particular example, and now I'll be doing the same procedure of adjusting the vertices for this other side as well. So first of all, I'll select this vertex loop, let's slightly scale it down, and then after this, let's change the angle and select this particular vertex loop and scale this down by pressing S and left click. Now after this, the next thing that we'll do will be to fix this part of the sword where we basically have the grip of the sword meeting with the guard. You can see that this lower part, or basically the base of the handle or the grip, looks very wide, which makes it appear disconnected from the rest of the model. So to fix this thing, let's go to the edit mode, deselect everything, then with my cursor over the grip, I'll press the L key and then scale this part down in the y-axis. Let's left click and also go to the side view. Let's zoom in and we'll be scaling this down to a level where we have this lower part intersecting with the guard. Also, to make the work easier, we can just select these two lower vertex loops and delete them, and then select this vertex loop and move it down in the z-axis like this and left click. With this, we now have the grip of the sword kind of integrated with the guard. Now in a similar way, we'll be doing the same procedure for this sword. So let's select this vertex loop over here. Let's scale this down slightly in the y-axis and also move it up in the z-axis. Then after making some adjustments in the scaling and the position, we'll be having all the three parts of the sword properly integrated into a single 3D model. Moving ahead, currently our 3D model looks very simple, low poly, and not having much details. And that is why we'll now be using the next modifier that we have not yet used in this course, and it will allow us to add some details in our 3D model. And the name of this modifier is the multi-resolution modifier. To see how it works and what kind of a result it generates, let's go to the modifier properties, click on add modifier, then in the generate category, select the multi-resolution modifier. Now on adding this modifier, you won't notice any change in the 3D model, but here in this modifier, we have the option to play with the subdivision. For example, if I click on the subdivide button, then this will basically subdivide the mesh with the levels viewport value set to 1. Also, we are getting a weird result over here where we have the blade of the sword, which is because of using an n-gon face on this top part. If you remember, we discussed this in one of the previous videos that using n-gon faces, that is those faces which have more than 4 vertices, it can lead to issues while you're working with shading and subdivision. And in this case also, on subdividing, we got to see this weird issue in the geometry. So to fix this thing, one of the ways can be to delete the top face and then use the grid fill tool, but for now, I'll simply add a loop cut over here and move it up like this, very close to the vertex loop on the top. Now let's return back to the object mode and let's also turn off the X-ray mode. Apart from this, if you keep on clicking on the subdivide button, then this will keep on increasing the levels of subdivision, and because of that, the quality of your 3D model will also increase. Currently, all the 3 values in the multi-resolution modifier are set to the level 5, and if you want to lower them, then you can change them manually like this. And here I now have all the 3 values set to the level 4. Now a small but an interesting question which must have come to your mind while using this multi-resolution modifier would be that why exactly are we using this modifier? Because very clearly it is simply subdividing the mesh with the subdivide button, and the same thing can also be done by the subdivision surface modifier. And here comes the difference between the multi-resolution modifier and the subdivision surface modifier. If I remove this modifier and add the subdivision surface modifier from this list, and let me change the number of levels viewport to 4, then this also provides us a high quality 3D model which appears to be smooth and perfect. And on the base level, it is true that subdivision surface modifier is almost the same as the multi-resolution. However, the difference lies in the sculpting tool. While using the sculpt tool, sometimes you might want to add some details to the 3D model, and for that purpose, you would need a larger number of vertices. But if you use the subdivision surface modifier, then this will make the mesh of the 3D model very complex and may even cause the Blender software to occasionally lag or even crash in some cases. But on the other hand, the multi-resolution modifier is available in Blender that allows you to add the geometry to your 3D model in such a way that you can then further add the details in the sculpting mode. So if you're not into sculpting, then you can use either of the two modifiers, whether the subdivision one or the multi-resolution. But if you want to sculpt your 3D model to add the details, but you want to keep the mesh very simple and not having a large number of vertices that is kind of very low poly, then in that particular case, the multi-resolution modifier will be of great help. So for now, let's remove the subdivision surface modifier from here and again add the multi-resolution modifier. Then click on subdivide. Let's click on the subdivide button a few more times for a higher level value. Now our sword's model looks completely perfect and ready to be sculpted. But yes, while sculpting, we won't be going into too much detail since this is not a sculpting tutorial or a sculpting course. Our main focus would only be to add some sculpting details to this model in order to increase its complexity, so that in the next video we would be focusing on the retopology part. So before going to the sculpt mode, first right click and apply shade smooth, then hold down Ctrl tab and switch to the sculpt mode. Now over here we have the different brush types. For example, this one is the clay, this one is the blob, then you have the clay thumb, clay strips, crease polish, crease sharp, and many others. But for now I'll be selecting the crease sharp since we'll be using it to create the details here. But right now if I go to the front view, then left click, then try to add the details like this, then you can see that it's not really a good way to get a uniform sculpting. And yes, one more thing to take care of is that if you're using a mouse, then you need to left click to make the changes. However, if you're using a pen tablet, then in that case it would be very easy for you because you just have to use your pen and draw up the details in a very easy way. For now, let's undo this, and the first thing that we'll be doing in the sculpting mode will be to add some details on the guard of the sword. But before that, with the crease sharp selected over here, let's go to the tool menu over here, which allows you to change the brush settings, and in this go to the stroke option and change the stroke method from space to line. By doing this, if I left click and drag like this, then you would notice that we have a line formed over here, and we now have the brush effect applied to that particular part where we had this line created. Now I'll undo this, and to add the details over here, let's first zoom in, then left click and drag like this, then release, and this will add a crease over here. But if I change the angle, then you will notice that we don't have the same applied on the other side. So to solve this problem, we have to enable the symmetry mode in the y-axis. And now if I again go to the front view, then sculpt like this, then in this case, on changing the angle, you will notice that the sculpting is done even on the opposite side. Now it totally depends upon you that how exactly you want your model to be sculpted. If you want to have heavy details on your model, then you can try different brushes and get different types of results in the sculpt mode. But for now, I'll be keeping all this very simple, so I won't be adding much details, but only that much which will help us to understand about the retopology concept. Now over here, I'm adding the details on this other side of the guard. Let's sculpt this 3 to 4 times more like this, and after this, the next thing that I'll do will be to do the same thing on the grip of the sword. So let's continue with the sculpting part like this. I'll add a line to create the crease and repeat the same step multiple times till I reach the top of the grip or the handle. After that, let's change the angle, and now we'll focus on adding the sculpting details to the blade of the sword. But before that, let's change the angle to see if everything looks perfect or not. And right now, from both the front and the back of the sword's model, all the sculpting details look absolutely perfect. So let's again go to the front view, and coming to the blade of the sword, let's zoom in, and I'll be adding a straight line from here till this point to create a crease like this. In a similar way, let's also go to the bottom part and add a crease or the line from this point till up over here. Then release the left mouse button or the pen, and the sculpting is now done. But again, as I told you before, I'm doing very simple sculpting over here. We are not going too much into the types of brushes, their functions, the different settings. But yes, if you feel that you should be having some more details in your model, then absolutely try these different brushes and make your desired model. But for now, I'll hold the Ctrl Tab button to go back to the object mode. Let's also switch to the modifier properties, and currently you can see that we have the levels viewport value set to 4, and because of that, we are able to see these details of the sculpting on a 3D model. Because if I reduce this down to 0, then in that case, we'll be seeing our original 3D model without any subdivision and also without any effect of the sculpting. But if I slowly increase this levels viewport value to 1, then 2, then you'll begin to notice some slight details of sculpting, but they're still not perfect. So let's further increase this levels viewport value to 3 or 4, and now it looks better. Also, for a more detailed look, we can further subdivide this to make the levels viewport value 5, but for now, I'll be keeping this to 4. Also, before finalizing this model, let's go to the edit mode, press A to select all, and I'll scale this up in the y-axis to make the sword look slightly heavier with some weight And after this, I'll be selecting these vertices over here, and to make them look better, I'll first scale them down like this and then move them in the x-axis, and then we'll repeat the same procedure for the other side. Also, do note that doing this step is not compulsory for you. If you think that your current model looks perfect and you don't need to make any changes, then you can continue with your existing model. And with this, we now arrive to the end of this video. In the part number 2, we use the sculpting tools to add some more details to the 3D model of the sword, and we have even made it ready to use it for understanding the concept of retopology. So in the next video, which will be the third part of the 5th section, we'll first understand about the meaning of retopology, its importance, and how can we do it with the help of the example of the sword. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel, press that notification bell so that you can get timely updates about the upcoming videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.